what does the Mississippi River mean to New Orleans?
Well, I mean, the Mississippi is why New Orleans is here. I don't think it's any exaggeration to say that. I mean, the city was founded here to protect and control the mouth of the river during the period of colonial expansion. It remains the lifeblood of the city. I mean, because the port is such a huge economic driver for the city. It carries a lot of stories. Stories seem to come down river with the water. And the Mississippi has played such a large role in the history of the country, and so much of it seems to converge here. You know, back in the day, New Orleans had a much higher profile. It was the largest city in the South at the time of the Civil War, rivaled New York as far as size and importance. And even though that importance seems to have declined somewhat, I think New Orleans remains a special place because of its connection to the river, which, as I say, has had so much of the history of the country nailed to it. But also because it remains the meeting point for so many cultures, so many interesting people. It's the birthplace of great art forms, jazz, Creole and Cajun food, and that process of cultural enrichment and development continues here as far as I've seen. The river is only a part of that, but it's a major part of it. Oh, may I?
Yeah.
Okay. But, you know, at the same time, the river is in some ways problematic for the city because we've channelized the river, and of course that's contributing to our land loss downriver, down on the coast. That's a process that, unfortunately, even though it keeps New Orleans alive because the port and the river are such big economic drivers, it could ultimately be something that threatens the city. So it's an interesting sort of tightrope that the city walks in its position here.
Makes sense. Since you were talking about all the things that New Orleans has in the cross section that,
Yeah.
that the city and the river bring together, what is one word that you would use to describe New Orleans?
I'll say vibrant, because it is rich culturally, but it's also alive. It's a thing, you know, it's an old city as far as the U.S. goes, turning 300 this year. And I think people attach a lot of importance to that with the architecture and so forth. But at the same time, it is something which I think I alluded to earlier. It is something which is ongoing. You know, we always have a new influx of cultures coming in. Most recently, I think Asian people from Vietnam and other parts of Southeast Asia. So that's going on. I feel like I lost track a little.
It's okay. It's
Take me
fine.
back here.
It's okay. Well, since we're speaking of the future and future cultures to come, how do you picture or imagine New Orleans after another 100 years?
Well, that's tough. You know, I'm a Star Trek fan. One of the local channels plays 5 hours every day when I get home, and I've been watching a lot of Deep Space Nine lately, and the captain from that is from New Orleans. I love the idea that New Orleans will still be here in another 300 years. But even to reach the end of this century, you know, the city has a lot of challenges that it's going to have to overcome. It's already overcome so many. I would love to see the importance, the reputation of New Orleans, the appreciation for New Orleans rise again in the next century. Because the city is only going to be able to overcome those challenges if it maintains the strong sense of self that I think it has, maintains an appreciation of itself, that the people maintain and build their love of the city, and that has to go out to the rest of the country too, and the rest of the world, because we're going to need as much support as we can to overcome those challenges. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
And one last question. You work along the river or on the river, so to
Sure.
speak. What kind of personal reward do you experience because of your work on the river?
Oh, wow. I mean, it's going to be kind of vague because it's been so big for me. I came down here after doing my master's thesis on Gulf Coast hurricane culture. New Orleans was one of my study areas. And that was where the love that I've developed for the city really started to grow. And I feel incredibly lucky just to be down here at this point in its history as it enters its 4th century. There's so much going on down here anyway on a regular basis, but it all my sense seems to be that it's amped up because of the tricentennial. As I've been saying, there are a lot of challenges here, but I think there's a lot of hope too, a strong resolve, and to be lucky enough to be part of that, and also to work on the river, which is sort of the timber that the whole city is nailed to. I just feel incredibly lucky for all of that, to be part of it at this time in the city's history.